Hello, I am Jaime Elizondo from Real World Ranching, and today we're going to talk about how to make sure your cattle don't get out of electric fencing under dry conditions. I hear from many people that electric fences do not work well or are not effective, and this usually means that when conditions are ideal, the livestock respect it, but when conditions get difficult, they get out and exasperate the farmer. In my own experience, when I am off the farm, my helper will tell me that the electric fence failed or that the livestock got out, and when asked the reason, I only get a blank stare from them, and sometimes I believe they are convinced that electric fences are not reliable or do not work, period. Can you relate? Well, let me tell you, one-wire electric fencing is very cheap, durable, and should be enough if we pay attention to details. I have used it for the last 30 years with very good results, but we need to do it right. They are so cheap to install and to maintain, to the tune of 3 to 10 times lower cost than barbed wire or wire netting, that they make absolute sense to me. And when we consider that in other countries they use them effectively, it pays to learn how to build them and maintain them effectively. I have been using electric fencing since around 1980 and have learned what it takes for it to be effective. First, let's think about where most of the problems come from. Around 90% of problems with cattle getting out of electric fences, one wire, galvanized 12.5 caliber electric fencing, is due to a lack of a good earth return system. We need to remember that bolts are necessary to transmit the shock, but what delivers the stopping power are the Joules, and they require a good ground or earth return system to function. Then there is the matter of a dry season or sandy, rocky soil that does not transmit the power efficiently. You see, the current must complete a circuit between the live animal touching the fence and the ground rods. So if the soil is dry, sandy, or rocky, it is more difficult for this to happen correctly. Now, let's analyze each component and where it can go wrong so we do not have our cattle get out under those conditions. First, minimum joules in the Energizer. I much prefer a minimum of 6 joules and a good recognized brand of a modern Energizer. Brands that come to mind are Staffix, Pell, and Gallagher, but there must be others of the same quality. Why not a larger Energizer? I will answer that right now. For maximum shocking power, we need to consider the distance from the Energizer to the permanent one-wire paddock where the cattle are in. I recommend a grounding station every 3 to 500 acres so that the battery-powered Energizer can be moved with the main herd and the shock is better so as to contain the livestock. This means that the Energizer with its ground rods is never too far from the herd. Now, should we use a battery-powered or a solar recharge batteries? To be able to move the Energizer around on a large property, we need it to be portable and battery-powered. There are solar panels available that can recharge the battery, and here is my experience with that. I prefer a large deep-cycle battery that I can move around with Energizer and recharge it at the shop or in my house. I have found most solar panel rechargers to be a headache in that they are not built as sturdy as needed. In my experience, they fall apart very quickly and create more problems than they are worth. I believe that any piece of equipment needs to be dependable, easy to use, easy to transport, and sturdy enough to last a long time. Then we need to build ground stations if the property is very large. If not, then one grounding rod stationed at the main house should be enough to deliver good shocking power in any conditions. We need to use at least one ground rod, galvanized, 1/2 to 5/8 of an inch thick and 2 meters long, driven into moist soil per each 2 joules that the Energizer delivers. The ground rods need to be continuously connected to the earth system of the Energizer with galvanized wire 12.5 gauge, and if it's double or triple insulator, it's better. These ground rod stations should be built every 300 to 500 acres for best results. They are left there, should be in the middle of the 300 to 500 acres and are permanent. Now, this is a very important component of your electric fence. If not done right, problems will happen. Ground rods and clamps, they need to be galvanized, and the clamps should be such that they can be tightened with a wrench. This means they need to have a bolt and nut and need to be galvanized, like the ones they used to link chains with. The connection needs to be very tight, as this is where most ground systems fail. Many of my total grazing students were having problems from using the brass weak clamps that could not be tightened enough, as they only could be tightened with a screwdriver. Those are not good enough. We need to use the galvanized ones that can be tightened with a wrench and have a nut and a bolt. Now, on the topic of insulators, I much prefer to use fiberglass posts or PVC posts, as they do not require insulators. If you prefer to use metal T-posts, which is a problem waiting to happen in my view, then you must use the very best quality insulators, and they need to be changed regularly, as the sun will make them brittle, and as we know, when your galvanized wire touches the metal post, it is effectively grounded, so cattle can get out. And what about the ground rods themselves? They need to be in moist ground. It is essential to keep the ground rods moistened as in a wet spot, but sometimes the wet spots dry up. Then it's up to us to maintain them moist. I suggest using a 5 to 20 gallon water jug with a drip irrigation hose and a faucet that will be dispensing the water to each galvanized ground rod to keep them moist all the way down. This helps the ground system so that it delivers a good shock. Always check your voltage and find and fix any faults, like faulty insulators, metal touching the fence, vegetation, fallen trees, holding the wire to the ground, etc. Check the voltage every day, as livestock do respect the fence, but after a few days, that is not delivering a good shock, they will find it and get out. It is better to check than to have to go look for your livestock. Believe me, especially if you're near the highway or a road. Now, remember I said that joules are what delivers the shock and that the ground return system makes sure it is felt strong? The way to check it is to lower the wire to the ground to hear the sound it makes when touching grass or moist ground. It should be a strong snap and not feeble. You can also do this at dusk, so you can see if there is a sharp, bluish, or reddish spark. Livestock feel it too. And remember, it needs to travel from their body, where they're touching the fence, to their hooves, which are hard, then through the soil, which can be sandy or rocky, and then complete the circuit with the Energizer ground rods. So everything must be working properly. Conclusion. We need a good ground return system for our Energizer to deliver enough shock under difficult conditions so that your livestock continue to respect your fence. Electric fences are not a physical barrier, but more a physiological one, where fear of the shock is what makes livestock respect the fence. Remember to use the key components explained before. Fiberglass posts whenever possible. Galvanized ground rods thick enough and 2 meters long, driven all the way into the soil. 1 galvanized ground rod per 2 joules. Galvanized clamps that can be tightened very tight with a bolt and a nut. Double or triple galvanized, triple protected, 12.5 wire. Double or triple insulated galvanized 12.5 wire to attach the ground rods to the Energizer earth return system. Moisten those ground rods when in use. Always keep the Energizer close to your herd for maximum shock, and always check your voltage daily to fix any shorts that may happen. If you do all of this, you will enjoy having electric fences and the flexibility they offer to your operation. So, goodbye. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast in Spotify, iTunes, or YouTube. You can also join us on the weekly email at www.rwranching.com/join. See you later.